Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, so now we are going to start James Joyce. His full name is James Augustine Ulysses Joyce. He was born in 1882 and died in 1941. He is a prominent Irish novelist, a short story writer, a poet, and a critic. The most important aspect of his works is stream of consciousness, and that is what he is known for. I have already explained stream of consciousness to you. Stream of consciousness is basically a depiction of the multiple thoughts and feelings passing through the mind of a narrator, and there does not need to be any logical sequence of those thoughts and feelings. In other words, we can say that whatever the narrator or the main character is feeling or thinking about, or whatever the incidents, whatever the circumstances are going through his mind, the depiction of all that is known as stream of consciousness. There might be a very much prominent incoherence and lack of sequence among those events and incidents, among those thoughts and feelings, but that is exactly what we talk about. Stream of consciousness. So stream of consciousness does not has anything to do with the sequence of a logical sequence of the incidents events. It is more concerned towards whatever is going on in the mind of the narrator. Then another important thing is impersonal and objective literature. In his literature, he has this sense of impersonality, and he does not want the writer to be the part of his works. He believes in the fact that the writer needs to be alienated from his works, and the works need to be very impersonal and objective in their nature. There shouldn't be any subjective feelings and emotions incorporated in the works. The writer's own feelings and emotions, his own beliefs, his own faith, his own interpretations, that must be kept aside, and literature has got nothing to do with them. And according to Joyce, literature needs to be impersonal and objective, and that is exactly what Joyce did with his own works. And not only this, he also believes in keeping the interpretation up to the audience, up to the readers. He does not make the interpretations, the meanings of his works very obvious. He wants his readers to be very much interested in his works and give a very deep reading to the works, and then interpret the works according to their own experiences, according to their own interpretations, according to their own feelings and emotions, and whatever they go through. Among his notable works, we have first of all a collection of short stories entitled as Dubliners. It was published in 1914, and it is a collection of 15 short stories. In this collection, he gives a naturalistic depiction of Irish middle class, who is basically paralyzed by poverty, by gotry and small-mindedness. It is basically what you can say post-war era, and all those struggles and all those problems and issues that common man, that middle class has to follow, and they suffer because of all these things. Another important thing in these short stories that he uses is Joyce's famous idea of epiphany. By epiphany, Joyce basically means a moment of experience where the character basically experiences or understands a life-changing and self-understanding or illuminating sort of thing, where the character basically goes through a self-understanding which changes his life, which changes his meanings of life for him, and which changes the direction of his life, and it basically illuminates his mind. His mind is changed altogether because of that epiphanic moment. Then if we talk about this collection, we find that there is a tripartite division of the collection. The collection is basically divided into three parts. The first part refers to childhood, and in this particular part the included poems are narrated by children protagonists. Most of the protagonists of the short stories that are included in this portion are children. Then we refer to the next division, the next part, that refers to adolescents, and in this particular part the narrators are young. And then the last one that refers to maturity, and in this particular part all the poems all the short stories that are included in this particular part have older protagonists. The important short stories that are included in this collection include The Sisters, then Arabi. Arabi is included in Punjab University's syllabus of graduation, and it is about a boy who falls in love with his friend's sister, and he fails to buy a gift for his beloved from the bazaar named as Arabi, which is quite what you can say a famous bazaar, but he couldn't afford to get a gift for his beloved from there. Then we have an encounter, A Little Cloud, Evelyn, Two Gallants, The Boarding House, Clay, A Painful Case, and then The Dead. The Dead is the last story in this collection. It is also one of the most famous short stories written by James Joyce. And it is not very short. Basically, it consists of 15,000 to 16,000 words, and because of that, it is sometimes classified as a novella also. Then we have Joyce's first novel, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. It was published in 1916, and it is set in Dublin. It is basically following the stream of consciousness technique. Its initial title was Stephen Hero, but later Joyce abandoned that title and used this new title. It is about the religious and intellectual awakening of a young person named Stephen Dedalus, who is also considered to be a representation of Joyce himself. Stephen Dedalus is basically the protagonist of the novel, and it refers to Joyce's fictional alter ego. The poem and the title, basically Daedalus, alludes to the Greek mythological character Daedalus. Daedalus in Greek mythology was father of Icarus. If you remember the mythology of Icarus, what happens in this game, जो हमारा ये था Daedalus, he basically built a labyrinth for the king. The king in return put him in that labyrinth along with his son, and in order to escape from there, he built wax wings for himself and his son. But he basically told his son not to go very close to son, because in that case he will lose his wings, and he was not allowed to fly very far. Basically the purpose was the wings was only to escape from the labyrinth. But the son Icarus did not follow his father's suggestions and his father's instructions, and what happened is that he flew quite near to sun, and as he went near the sun, the wax with which those wings were made, the wax melted, and Icarus fell down, and he died right there. And ultimately Daedalus was heartbroken because of his son's death, and you can read this myth in detail also. But even then, this is enough for you. So Daedalus is basically Daedalus, the character in Greek mythology, is a symbol of wisdom, knowledge, and power. So using this name for his protagonist in the novel, Joyce basically symbolically represented the wisdom and knowledge and the power that his character had. This character, Stephen Dedalus, questions and rebels against the Catholic and Irish conventions that he had to follow, and he doesn't basically agree in it, and he thinks that these things need to be abolished and abandoned. Initially, the title, as I have told you, was considered to be Stephen Hero, and the purpose was a 63 chapter autobiographical novel. Basically, Joyce was writing this autobiographical novel, and the intention was to to divide it into 63 chapters, and the title was Stephen Hero. But what happened was after completing 25 chapters, Joyce basically changed his mind, and he stopped following the same pattern. He stopped writing Stephen Hero. However, he reworked its themes and its protagonists. He took it from there. He kept some of the autobiographical elements and redesigned the novel. He then condensed it into a 5-chapter novel, and he disbanded the idea of strict realism. Rather, he added some elements of idealism into it, and he followed the technique of a stream of consciousness, and through that he created this new novel, a portrait of the artist as a young man. So basically, Stephen Hero was never completed. If we talk about the characters of the novel, we have Stephen Dedalus, who is the protagonist, and then we have Simon Dedalus, the father, Mary Dedalus, the mother, Emma Clary, his beloved, and then Cranley, his best friend, and Lynch, another friend from the university. Okay, the next most important work of James Joyce is Ulysses, which was published in 1922, and it is also set in Dublin. It was basically, the setting basically has a very fixed timing also, and it is set in 16th and 17th June 1904. Ulysses is considered to be a sequel to the previous novel, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. It is considered to be one of the most important novels in modern literature because it gives what you can say complete description of the movement. According to some critics, it is considered to be a demonstration and summation of the entire movement. Ulysses, the title, refers to the Latinized name of Odysseus, who was the hero of Homer's epic Odyssey. Then it also follows the same technique, that is stream of consciousness, and it is rich with puns, parodies, allusions, and humor. These are the most important elements of this novel. Then there's another thing, that is there's a commemoration day that is known as Bloomsday. Bloomsday basically 16th June को जो है वो celebrate किया जाता है, and the lovers and the followers of James Joyce basically commemorate this day on 16th June, commemorating and celebrating the life of James Joyce. Why 16th June? Basically 16th June because it is the setting date of Ulysses, as I have just told you that Ulysses is set on 16th and 17th June 1904. However, the novel was published later in 1922, the novel Ulysses, but its setting was on 16th and 17th June 1904. So, Bloomsday is celebrated on 16th June because it refers to the setting date of Ulysses, also because it refers to the first outing of James Joyce and his would-be wife Nora Barnacle, and the title Bloomsday is taken from the name of the protagonist of the novel, that is Ulysses. Its protagonist name is Leopold Bloom. Okay, so that's it about James Joyce. Now we move towards Ezra Pound. Ezra Pound is an American poet and critic, but an expatriate American poet and critic. It means that he didn't live in America basically. His full name was Ezra Weston Loomis Pound. He was born in 1885 and died in 1972. He is considered to be the inventor of the imagism technique. When we talk about imagism, it is basically the precision of imagery and a very clear and sharp language that is used to depict this imagery. The movement basically was derived from classical Chinese and Japanese poetry. The elements of this movement were already present in that poetry. That is why Ezra Pound is also called as the inventor of Chinese poetry of our time by T.S. Eliot. Among his notable works, we have Repostus, that is his collection of 25 poems, and it was published in 1912. In this collection, first time Ezra Pound had used the term imagist, through which we call this movement as imagism. Then we have another important work of Ezra Pound with the name Hugh Selwyn Moberley, which was published in 1920. It is basically a long poem which is which consists of 18 short poems. Basically, it is a long poem, but it can be subdivided into 18 short poems, and these 18 short poems are grouped into two sections, and among those two sections, the first section is autobiographical in nature. Then the next most important work of Ezra Pound is the Cantos, which is an epic poem, and it consists of 23,000 lines. And based on its length, we can say that it is twice the length of Milton's Paradise Lost, and it is 50 times longer than Eliot's The Wasteland. Okay, that's it. That's it about Ezra Pound. We do not need to go very deep into Ezra Pound, and that's it about it.